holiday woes for the tech industry. The New York Times reporting that Amazon will lay off 10,000 workers starting this week. That's 3% of its workforce, the biggest layoff in the company's history.
This was ultimately my call. It was, one of the hardest calls that I've had to make.
Last month, the largest technology companies in the world were conducting a massive layoff of their employees. Facebook's home company Meta announced that it would lay off approximately 11,000 employees. Twitter announced that about half of its 3,500 employees would be laid off. Amazon said that it's expected to cancel around 10,000 jobs, and many other technology companies also laid off their employees, which resulted in a total of 118,000 technology sector employees being laid off in November alone. Why is this happening? What's going on? Why are these companies laying off such a large number of employees? This is what we will find out today.
And where there's despair, may we bring hope.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime.
Do you have a bodyguard?
No.
You don't?
I have one bodyguard.
But I must confess it feels good to be thought of as a person, not as a personality.
We are concerned here with an act of humanity.
Recently, the stock prices of large technology companies have been plummeting at the present time. For example, Meta's stock price has dropped 76% from its highest level in 2021. Its value currently exceeded $263 billion. A very large collapse, a collapse that made Mark Zuckerberg's wealth plummet from $142 billion last year to $36 billion. Which means that about $100 billion have been wiped out of his wealth in just a few months. And Meta is not alone. Amazon's value also fell by 52%. Apple's value fell by 24%. Alphabet, Google's home company's value fell by 43%. Microsoft's value fell by 34%. And even Tesla's value fell by more than 55%. Of course, you're seeing these collapses now and saying that the losses are very high. But in reality, all of these collapses have only returned the value and wealth of these companies and business leaders to just 3 years ago. This means that these companies have grown and expanded in the last 3 years. And the reason for this growth is the COVID-19 pandemic. When the pandemic happened and people sat at home, central banks lowered interest rates and injected trillions of dollars into the economy to keep it running. And on the other hand, governments, especially the American government, sent money and checks to families to spend, and the people didn't lie and began to spend on a large scale, resulting in an increase in demand and consumption in general. But the problem is that consumption was greater than the ability of companies to meet it. So what did they do? They said it's easy. Let's hire more and more people, very many people. Now, after hiring, they sent to import more from China and press more on Chinese factories, high demand, and we will earn a lot. And in fact, ports were crowded with products to the extent that ships were standing for months waiting for their turn to unload their cargo. They said no problem. We will hire more people to unload the cargo. The important thing is that there are products on the shelves of the stores to sell more and earn more. But a major disaster happened at that time. COVID-19 began to return in China and the number of infections began to increase. Then the Chinese president came out and said zero COVID, meaning that we will close the factories a little, meaning damage to supply chains and logistics. American companies say, what do I do with the people I hired? And the answer was just a little. We are at the end of 2021 and 2022 will be a happy year. Supply and logistics crisis will improve. We just have to wait a little. We have already entered the new year, and inflation is beginning to rise to higher levels. Central banks are sorry, but we also need to control rising inflation by slightly raising interest rates. As we entered the month of February of this year, tensions between Russia and Ukraine ignited. Russia started the war, meaning greater damage to supply chains and logistics. food crisis, meaning increase in commodity prices, meaning increase in oil and gas prices, meaning increase in commodity prices, meaning inflation starts to hit on people. In America, inflation has risen to a level that has not been seen in 40 years, while in Europe it has exceeded strange numbers, 10.7%, a very high number in Europe. The central banks say that we also need to raise interest rates more and more because we need to control this high inflation. Here, technology companies are watching what is happening and predict that the future is not nice, the future is a recession. The problem is that a large number of technology companies are not currently profitable or make little profit, which means they are not very attractive to investors who currently want to invest in bonds, for example, because their benefits are high, raised, and safe. They say what makes us invest in technology companies that are not currently profitable, and we will lose guaranteed profits in other areas. Therefore, we are now witnessing a major collapse in technology company stocks, which I reviewed at the beginning of the episode. These companies are well aware that all predictions point to a long and severe economic downturn, so they have to adjust their positions for the long term with the least possible losses, meaning reducing spending by closing low-performing projects, reducing employee numbers at an unprecedented rate, as we saw at the beginning of the episode. That is why we witnessed the massive layoffs that took place last month and are expected to continue given the current economic conditions in the world. Finally, I have a question for you that I hope you will answer in the comments. In your opinion, how long will this crisis last? And what is the extent of the damage to Swedish companies? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. See you in the next episode. Thank you. Hey, one more thing. In the description below, you will find the sources. And as everyone today is a journalist through his phone, we have put a crew of workers at your disposal so you can send us all you find important in terms of news, trends, incidents, and scandals as pictures, videos, and documents. If we publish your content, you will get paid according to the number of views. You will find also in the description below a WhatsApp number and an email address for the reason.